Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. My name is Sam, and I'm here to help you out on your queer family planning journey. Through conversations that I have with professionals who identify as being 2S LGBTQIA+, who work alongside individuals and couples as they start their family planning journey, and through conversations with parents of intentionally created families, I will provide you answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Creating a family using the foster care system and then adoption feels like the most vulnerable way to create a family. Ultimately, the goal of all agencies is to reunite the child with their birth family. However, if that's not possible, then you get to adopt them. So you open your heart and you open your home and you provide them with unconditional love and support. And maybe someday they will stay with you forever. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to Marnie and Tova, who tell us about their journey through the foster care system and fostering to adopt here in Ontario, Canada. It is my true honor to be able to introduce them to you today so that you can hear their story. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm really excited to be introducing you to Marnie and Tova. And Tova and Marnie have been on quite a journey to become parents and create the family that they have. So let me first welcome you both and ask you to tell us about the members of your family.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm Tova, and this is my wife, Marnie. And we have a 6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, both of whom came into our family via adoption.
Excellent. And of the various methods available, you chose adoption. When we break adoption down, there are a couple of different approaches that you can take. You can adopt through a private agency, which can be expensive, and you can adopt through the Children's Aid Society, because we're recording in Canada, and that's where Marnie and Tova also live. Can you let us know what path you took and why that was maybe the path that you chose?
So we were open to all sorts of forms of adoption. And when we started looking deeper into it, we realized that as two women, we had a lot of the international sort of private doors closed to us.
Mm-hmm.
So the international route wasn't an option. In terms of private versus public, we also had this thought that because we were two women, that somebody had to sort of choose us if we were to adopt privately. So that was also a bit of a barrier in our thought process. We didn't want to have to, put our best selves out there and then get sort of rejected, not because we weren't fit parents, but because we were two women.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, the logical choice was to adopt publicly.
Okay.
So that's the route we took.
And I had spoken to a few private adoption practitioners, or I don't know what you call them, but the consensus I got from them was that it would be challenging as two women to adopt privately. You're kind of up against, you have a little bit of a barrier because you're not a man and a woman adopting. So that was really interesting to hear people say, and helpful for us to decide where to go.
Absolutely. It feels weird to think that somebody would actually say those words to you, but you're right. Be honest with me. If my chances are pretty slim, then let me know that right up front so that I can take that right off the table. Right?
We were totally comfortable asking uncomfortable questions. And it was really clear to us that it would have been really challenging we might not have gotten to the end point if we were to choose the private route.
Yeah. So we there was a couple of different organizations. There's CAS, which is I guess the public adoption agency. There's the what's it called? Jewish Family Services.
Yeah, Jewish Child and Family Services. There's a Jewish organization. There's a Native Canadian organization and also a Catholic organization.
Mhm.
So there's 4 different public agencies that you can adopt from, and you can only work with one. So we had to, we chose the public.
Well, we chose public
yes.
because the Catholic one wasn't an option. So Tova and I are both Jewish. So we were told that like that's not going to happen.
Right.
The Jewish what's it called?
Jewish Family and Child Services.
Thank you. We spoke to them as well because we are Jewish, and that was, felt like a natural agency to engage with. But their adoption rates are very small, very low.
Okay.
So I think maybe there's like 1 or 2 adoptions a year.
Oh, okay.
Them. So again, we thought, okay, we have a couple of things stacked against us in that case. So being 2 women. So we went with CAS, which is the other organization.
And we had a great experience.
Can you describe a little bit of the process with CAS, because their journey or what they take you through is different than perhaps some of the other organizations. But from what I understand from people I've spoken to, yourselves included, it's a lengthy process, but it's really involved so that you come out the other side as prepared as you can possibly be for the children that you adopt.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of our biggest learning moments. When you are ready, when you decide you're ready to adopt, to have a child, you sort of want it to happen tomorrow. And I think our process from start to finish was maybe close to 3 years,
Wow.
which is a long time. And in hindsight, I'm so thankful that it was so lengthy. And I'll tell you kind of what the process was. So it starts out with just attending sort of an information session where you have a room full of people hoping to adopt, and they sort of just kind of talk you through the process. They give you a little bit of stats, like how many kids do they adopt, what needs do they have, can you expect really. And they tell you that, like this is not meant to scare you. It's real.
I think it is meant. I think I remember one of our workers saying like that first session is really meant to scare you because you have to they tell you like all the things that you're not used to hearing, and they want to make sure that they weed out anyone who like can't or isn't capable or doesn't or isn't able to
or isn't ready
for that kind of commitment.
Sure. I would think that would be, because you go in with rose-colored glasses, like you say, you go in saying, okay, I'm ready for a baby. Let's just have a baby. And so they are honest with you and real with you, so that you have to take that moment to take a step back and say, okay, am I really ready?
Well, yeah, and they tell you right away that if you're looking for a baby, the chances of that happening are, they present the numbers. Like, these are the kids, like in the past 5 years, these are the numbers of adoptions we've had. This is how old the kids were. So you see that, if you're looking for a fresh, I don't want to say healthy, but, like here's a baby that was just born, like the chances of that happening through Children's Aid are like slim to none. Right? Every adoption has a lengthy story behind it and a context behind it. And it's not realistic to expect to have a baby, like a baby babe. So people need to sort of hear that and understand it. And once you're sort of done that meeting, there's a ton of paperwork that you need to do before you can move on to the next step. So there's, lots of personal information that you're sharing about yourself, your upbringing, your finances, what resources you have. You have to have a physician sort of fill out a bunch of paperwork about your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. If you see any other sort of doctors and specialists, you have to include reports from them. You need to do a police check as well. So there's a lot of paperwork, and it takes time to complete. You're reliant on other people. You need references, I think, too, from people. So you get your paperwork done, and then once that's done and someone reviews it, then you kind of move on to the next process, which is education. So you have to do sort of PRIDE education. I don't remember what PRIDE stands for, but it's really a lengthy sort of course where you talk about what it actually means to adopt and what
their needs could be. Yeah.
So the word that is very synonymous with adoption is trauma. So you learn sort of what that sort of means. What does trauma look like for these kids? And when you are exposed to significant trauma very early on, it certainly impacts your development. So what does that look like? How do these kids present? How do they behave? What are their challenges? What are their strengths? What supports are there for you? Can you manage children with these sorts of behaviors? What are your advocacy skills like? Like all of these sorts of things that like we never really thought about are sort of presented in PRIDE. I know that you have the option to do PRIDE privately, and you can pay for like a weekend crash course, right, or something like that. And we took it through CAS, so we had to wait. We had to wait till there was a spot for us. And I think it was like months. We had to wait months. And then when there was a spot for us, we went every week for 3 hours for, I think it was 3 or 4 months. So it was quite a commitment. And I remember saying, oh, we should just dish out the $2,000 or whatever to do a crash course on a weekend. And I'm so thankful we didn't, because you need, like, the stuff that you talk about is heavy and it's new. And it's really important to take time to like reflect and digest it all and think, like, is this something I can actually do? Right? Many of the kids are diagnosed with, they have, they're not neurotypical because of trauma and developmental sort of, their development is very hindered. So they have a lot of the kids in care have lots of different diagnoses. Autism spectrum is very common. ADHD is very common. Because there's a lot of stories and a lot of challenges, like fetal alcohol, like they can never, you can assume that kids with FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, they also present with lots of different behavioral issues, learning issues. And that's hard to sort of manage. So understanding that and learning, like having a lengthy PRIDE process allows you to really think about what your skills are, what you're capable in managing, what you want your future to look like is something you're in for. So I'm so thankful we had that time to really work on our understanding of ourselves and what we were getting into.
I would think you would need that time after each class to not just process how you're feeling, but to check in with your partner to see how they're feeling too, because your feelings are going to be separate from one another and you need to be connected on this journey. And a crash course, I don't feel like, and obviously I haven't taken it, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I would think that's not a lot of time to process your own feelings, let alone to check in with your partner and see if you're even still on the same page.
Yeah, I feel like after every PRIDE session, we would come home and have like another session of 2 hours of us like talking about what was spoken about that day.
And there's also homework that we used to get, like just, I would think, oh, so annoying, I have to fill out these papers, but really it was just those questions, like sort of reflection questions, thinking about your own traumas and thinking about the traumas that kids might present with and how might you navigate those. It's hard to think about those things. But it really did force us to make space for those sorts of thoughts and conversations. And I without it, I don't think we would be where we are today.
I
So
would
I'm
think
so
it's like a therapy almost, right? Like
yeah.
a type of therapy. Because we go to our own therapies, talk to our therapist, and they give us things to think about before the next time we come in. But I mean, this is focused obviously towards gearing you for being ready to adopt a child who is going to have experienced at some point in their life some kind of trauma. But it's got to be much like therapy. It can't be fast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. After Pride, so I think Pride, so we're already, if I give you a timeline, I think we went to a session. I remember having a jacket. It was like winter, January maybe. And then we got our paperwork done quickly. I was right on it when it was like the initial paperwork. I think we were done by March or April and had to wait till Pride in the fall. So we pretty much had to wait all that whole summer. And Pride was like in the fall until the winter. So that was a whole year already by the time we were done Pride. Once you're done Pride, there's another batch of paperwork. And this one is a little bit more detailed at like your finances, your home situation, your work. You need more references.
Your
Like,
family life, like they go, they do like a home study, but and you can, again, you can pay to get that done quicker. I think it's like a couple $1,000. Or you can continue on and do it when you have a worker and when the timing works out.
yeah, so you do that paperwork and then they review it again and assign you a worker. So we were assigned a worker. And then based on their schedule, they start their official home study. So she sort of reviews all your paperwork and then she meets you. And then we had, I think, 4 or 5 meetings with her. Each took hours. I would say she would come over between 2 to 3 hours at a time. Wow. And she probably would come monthly, like once a month. So that the home study process for us also took months, like 6 or 7 months in total. And every time she would come, she would have a set of questions to talk about. And it got like pretty like involved. You know, she would ask us lots about ourselves and what we do and what our strengths are. How do we deal with conflict amongst each other? How do we celebrate together? What our resources are like? What's your family like? What, like just getting to know us. And then each session she had, some things that she wanted to discuss. So one session we went through our whole house, like, what do you have rooms? Do they have windows? Do they have
like a safety? It was
like
more of a safety.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, like where is you have to have like all your alcohol like away and everything, like
so things we never even thought about because we're like still far from it, but like we had to think about it, like where do we keep our like bleach and the things we clean with and all of that stuff. So we went through that. That was one session. And then we each had a session together where we talked, like, no, sorry, all the sessions were together except for a couple where we had them individually, where she talks about your childhood and your childhood traumas and sort of what skills you gained and how you overcame things, or how do they show up in your everyday life now. Like very intense sort of therapeutic conversations. And I think I never saw a therapist beforehand, but this process really uncovered a lot of my own traumas and issues. And I started seeing a therapist right after that, which is really great. But you don't realize how, different experiences in your life have changed who you are and how they might come up now and affect you now. So it was like really, this whole experience has been really eye-opening, I would say.
Absolutely.
So then once those home study sessions were done, then our worker had to write our home study, which is like ended up being like a 40-page document. Ooh. And I think it also took her months. So I think we signed off on our home study in October or December. So we're already like 2 years in.
Right.
And once you're done the home study and it's signed off, then you're called Adopt Ready. And you could, get profiles of kids who need a home. There was one other thing that we did during our home study that I think was really important. And that was a session where we talked about our skills and our strength and our weaknesses, what our family could look like based on that. So what we're comfortable with managing. Are you comfortable in managing kids that are non-verbal, kids that have complex medical needs? Are you comfortable with kids who are on the autism spectrum, with FASD and the following behaviors? Are you comfortable with with kids who might, harm animals or be aggressive, or like really difficult questions that we had to sort of sit there and think through together alone, what we're comfortable with. So when you're adopt ready, you sort of have this idea of what you are capable in managing, so that when you do get a profile of a child, then you're equipped to make the right decision.
Wow, so many things I never would have even thought about. But I mean, the reality is that so many people have babies who end up with an issue that they're born with, and the parents get these babies and don't have any skill set and haven't talked to anyone about how they would cope in those situations. And you've had the gift of being able to identify where your own strengths and weaknesses are and what you feel like you could potentially navigate in terms of a child who's placed with you. I feel like you had the opportunity to learn what probably all of us as parents should have learned before we became parents. And because you were working alongside the province to be able to give a loving home to a child, they gave you the opportunity to have this, albeit truly lengthy process.
Absolutely. And I'm so kind of grateful for that. And I do agree that I think I said this to Tova. I'm like, every parent should do this program. Like,
well, we're thinking now, Marnie she's thinking of doing a little education, like a program similar to Pride for our extended family, so that they sort of understand trauma and what it might do to your development, and how their behavior as grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors might need to change. And also our friends. We're constantly sort of advocating for our family. And it's because we're equipped with this knowledge. And I feel very strongly that if everybody had this knowledge, this world will be a much better place. We'd be much more able to just understand diversity, like real diversity, and really embrace it.
I think that's a phenomenal idea. And Marnie, I'd love to pick your brain outside of this about that possibility, because I think that it's an invaluable resource to the world, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Cuddle your baby in comfort in Moon Mama underwear, designed to keep you comfy and feel special. Each pair is hand-dyed, making them unique just like the person wearing them. These babies are not just for postpartum recovery, great for hip replacements to gender-affirming surgery. Keeping you comfortable and feeling special is our #1 goal. Visit us at heymoonmama.com and use code SAMLEESON for 15% off your purchase. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at heymoonmama. Stay comfy.
Most people in the 2S LGBTQIA+ community know that when they're creating their family, that there's going to be a cost associated with that. Can you talk a little bit about what the finances look like then when you're going through a public adoption process like you were with the CAS?
So we paid $0, like nothing came out of our pocket to adopt our 2 kids. So everything is like all the paper is provided to you. The Pride course you don't pay for. All of the materials are provided for you. There's also lots of education sessions online sort of throughout the process. All of those sessions, seminars are provided to you. So we didn't pay anything for adopting our kids.
They've always like, if you can go public, and if you want to fast track some of the things,
Right.
like the home study, like Pride, you're talking a couple $1,000s.
For each of those things,
Yeah.
maybe more. I don't know, maybe the prices have gone up since we've done it. But you could do some sections privately and still adopt through the public system. Or you could when we were looking at it. But again, it is costly.
Mm-hmm.
I just actually thought of something back to what you said before, because I do want to then hear about your children being placed with you. But you mentioned that you didn't do the fast track, you did the in-person sessions. Do you think that there's value in doing an in-person session as well, to be able to hear the thoughts or questions from other people that are in the group with you, who you were thinking about that on Tuesday morning when you were in the shower, but you forgot by the time you got to Pride on Thursday night to ask that question, but it's something that came up. Were you able to feed off one another well in that kind of a setting?
Oh my God, totally. Marnie, let me know if I'm talking too much.
No, I can't talk that well.
No, it was amazing for us to be in a community. And I have to actually really emphasize, so in Pride, we were there every week for months. We made some really strong connections with other individuals, one of who's gone, well, many I'm sure have adopted, but we're still very close to a few of those families now, and they've all adopted, and it's actually really been invaluable to have those connections be made and maintained, because when a child comes to you, it's fucking wild.
Mm-hmm.
And because adoption itself is a big trauma, and to have someone that actually really understands what you're going through is so, so, so important. So those relationships that we made at Pride were like invaluable as we continue to progress. And sometimes you get frustrated with how long it takes, and there's someone you can text and say, oh, my worker hasn't gotten back to me. It's been months. And we created a little community at Pride, and I'm so thankful for that. And I wonder if it wasn't in person, and if we were to do it on a weekend, if we still would have come out the other end with so much support and understanding as we did.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't think so.
I would recommend anyone who is doing this, do the long process.
Right.
Take your time with it.
Yeah. Because you're going to be parents for a long time. So it's not like this is going to really interfere with that length of time too much. But then that takes us, then you did your home study, you got your 40-page dossier about yourselves.
It's pretty much like an autobiography of our life. Like, it's wild.
Which is kind of neat to think that then your children have access to that, right? Because how many questions do you have for your own parents about things that came up throughout your life that maybe is something that's answered in a book like that, right?
So true. I never thought about the benefit of it after our adoption process, but we still have it, and maybe it will come in handy.
There you go. Just a second. Let me flip to page 25 and figure out the answer to that question.
Right.
So at this point, we're like 2 years in, and we sort of know what we're looking for, what we're comfortable in managing. And we wait for sort of an email from the worker with a profile of somebody who she knows might fit within our capabilities. So she sort of knows what we're looking for, because we've talked about it at length. And she knows what kids need a home at this moment and what fits. So she would send you profiles. And I think there were not many. It was not like all of us, like day after day after day, you get a profile. It was very, very infrequent in our case.
I think we got a total of like 2 or 3.
Yeah, that was it.
Maybe.
Yeah. And the first couple were not for us. We felt strongly reading the one pager. You get like one pager about a child, which is so crazy, because you cannot possibly describe a human being on one sheet of paper. We're so complex, and Anyways, you get these profiles, and then there's a question of, do you want to pursue this further? Are you interested? So the first couple, we were not interested. And then the third one, which was adopting our little guy, we were interested in moving forward. And there were 15 other families that were also interested in moving forward. So what happens at that point, this is what I understand, is so every child that's in care has a team of people who are looking out for them. They have workers. There's adoption workers who are interested in this story, in this individual. There's physician. There's a whole team of individuals that know them and are advocating for them. So I think the team responsible looks over all 15 families' home study, right? And they read them over, and then they cut the list down to 3 families. So we were chosen to continue. We were one of the 3, and that also takes time. And then, once that happens, then there's another meeting, a planning meeting for the child, where your adoption worker presents you to the team that is responsible for this child. And so there are 3 workers presenting 3 sets of families for this child, and then their team sort of makes a decision on who has the best fit, meaning who has demonstrated to have the skills and the capacity to provide this child with everything they need to succeed. So we were chosen to sort of continue the process.
But remember, at that stage, we had to put together
that's right.
We did
You did a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. We did like a presentation about us, like specifically talking about how, because CAS, their focus is really on the child. It doesn't really matter. It matters about us, but it's really about, can you meet the needs of this child? Like, it's very child-centric, and that is the person who matters the most in this whole process. So we spent some time, presenting ourselves, speaking to, knowing the profile of our child, speaking to how we would be the best kind of fit for what they need.
What we thought they needed. Because they're so different.
Agreed.
So once and we don't present this, right? Our worker presents this on our behalf, along with our work study, with our home study, and everything that she knows about us, I guess, that fits this child's needs. So once that happens, then you can meet the child. So the worker sets up a meeting. And this process, I think, can look very differently depending on the situation, but you sort of meet the child, and it's not like they're yours, right? Like, you have an opportunity to spend time with them, to get to know them, to understand what their needs are at the moment, to see their environment, different kids have different needs with the transition. So it can be quite lengthy or shorter if it needs to be. Anyways, and you sort of, with your worker, you're constantly in contact to say, this is feeling good. I want to continue, or something here doesn't fit right. I might want to sit on this for a little bit. You can always back out, say, this doesn't seem like the right fit for us. I think there was that opportunity for you. But when we met our little guy, like, I don't know, it just felt right. Although he was very different in person than his profile was,
right?
Which was also wild to sort of live through. But for us, like, we knew that we had all the capacity and the skills and the love to give to this little boy, so that he would have the best outcome we could possibly give him.
I love that.
Yeah. Love him. And
and now you have 2.
Now we have 2.
you don't start, I assume, at the very beginning again for another child. You jump in sort of to the same point you jump in after your home study's done, and that you're adopt ready again when you decide you'd like to expand your family?
So this is a good question. So once you adopt, so the process is, so once the child is with you, and this happened to us during COVID. So I think the process was a bit lengthy, but it's all legally done. And once kids are for adoption, they're crown wards, meaning that the Children's Aid Society is looking after them.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you adopt them, that all has to be done through the courts. And again, there's context and there's families and there's stories there. So it could be quite a lengthy process in the courts. So your adoption is really only finalized when the judge says that this child is now with this family,
right?
And sort of writes about that.
And I think for COVID, it took from placements, like when he was here, it was about a year.
More. It was more than that. I remember we got a letter like in December, just a random letter because it was COVID. It was so anticlimactic for us. And he came to us in August of 2019, and I don't think it was finalized till 2021 or 2020, like a while. Like It was a long time. But he was with us the whole time as if nothing changed. We just had a piece of paper that, said that he's officially ours. Anyway, so you cannot adopt again until your adoption is finalized, and then you have to wait. So there's at least, I think, 1.5 years that you have to wait before you can put your names back in for more kids. And we were thinking about adopting another, and I had emailed. So once you're...
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in order to kind of go, let's say you want to grow your family and adopt again, it's not like you just say, okay, like put us in there again. You have to do a new home study
and update it. Hold on. So that's what I was saying.
Okay.
I emailed. So once you adopt, you now have your worker is no longer your person. You have a post-adoption worker. So there's a new person that sort of takes over to support you. So we emailed her to say we're ready. So she says, okay, here's a bunch of paperwork for you that you need to do. And I remember opening the document, and it was literally question after, how was your first adoption experience? What were the challenges you had? How did you overcome? It was like literally question after question after question, where it wasn't like a yes or no or quick answer. Like I had to write paragraphs. And I remember opening it up and being like, nope, can't do this right now.
Right.
And just parking it because it seemed very overwhelming. Right at this point, we had a little guy, and we were parents, like trying to get. It was busy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we were going to do that paperwork, but we never got around to it. But the process is you do the paperwork, and then because your world has changed, your home study is no longer reflective of your real situation. Right? We had welcomed our son, so our life was different.
Mm-hmm.
Home environment was different. So your home study gets redone. You have like an updated version. So your worker, you get assigned, once you hand in the paperwork, you get assigned a worker. And then again, they have to come and update your home study. And that might be 1 visit, 2 visits, 3 visits. Like they'll determine sort of when they get the right information. And then I assume you go back into the pool. So they have to write up your home study. It has to be approved. And then you're adopt ready again.
Okay.
To receive, profiles and move through the process. So it could have taken a long time. Do you want to talk about our story? What happened?
Go for it.
So we got a call from our worker, and we
this
thought...
is the sorry, let me clarify. This is your post-adoption worker that you've been now assigned? Is that right?
Actually our old worker that called.
Okay. I just need to stay on the train. Sorry.
I know.
No,
there's
that's
a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
Right.
You would assume it's the post-adoption, but it wasn't. because we hadn't done the paperwork, we weren't adopt ready. It was our worker. And I honestly thought when I saw her name come up that she wanted us to come and speak at Pride because, the people that run Pride are adoption workers, really skilled, highly, involved individuals, as they should be. So she called us and she had told us that our little guy had a sibling. And because he was in our care, he was ours, they do their best to keep families together. So we had a sort of a discussion with her, would we be interested in learning more about this child? And were we capable in, growing our family? So we had always told her, like, give us all the kids. So she knew that we would be into it, and we were. And then with his sibling, things sort of moved a lot faster. So then once we expressed interest, because we had the sibling, it didn't kind of go on to all the people waiting. It kind of came to us first, and we were interested. So then we sort of continued the process. We got to meet her. We got to know her. Before that, when did she had to update our home study. So she did come and visit us a few times. And I'm not sure of the timeline. I think we did that first. She came to us and we finished the home study. And then we sort of met our little girl, progressed through the process.
I think it was a couple months.
Yeah, it was a few months. I think she called us in January, and we had met our little girl at the end of April. So we took February, March to do the home study, to have it done, updated, signed off.
I want to say November. I feel like it was.
No, it was earlier because I looked at when we called daycares, and it was January. This is what you got to think about.
But by comparison, it must have felt like it happened lightning fast.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
But the second time around, the first time around when that child comes, like, you have no idea what is about to happen. Like, you have this like idea that this child is going to come into your life and you're going to love them, and you totally do. But your life, like the trauma associated with adoption and the whole process is like, you can never prepare yourself, right? Like, you're in it, when you're in it, you're in it, and you get through it. So we felt like we had a lot of the skills already and the capacity to do this a second time. Like, we knew what to expect. So it felt smoother for us the second time around.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole process, were there times that you were made to feel, we've talked about it before you even came to fully decide what organization you're going to work with, but throughout working with Pride, throughout the, meeting the workers for home studies and doctors and everything else, were there times that you were made to feel like you were the other because you were part of the queer community and wanting to adopt, or was that something that never really surfaced for you?
Well, I would say we felt extremely welcomed, and not othered at all.
Wow.
Like, it was a very, I would say, even in that first meeting that we spoke about, when you go and learn the first time, there was such a diverse group of people, single people wanting to adopt, queer people wanting to adopt, heterosexual people. Like, it was a really nice mix.
Right.
And I do remember in that first session them addressing like diversity and saying up front, there is no barrier, like, everyone is welcome here. So that was really nice. Whereas with the Catholic organization, like, I was pretty much told, like, don't even bother.
And it makes sense. Like, I can understand. I don't agree with it, but I could understand how very religious, observant individual, we don't fit the mold.
Right. Fair.
Which is why we steered away, obviously, from that option.
Yeah. So I would say, as like a queer person, like, it was a great experience. And I never felt like that was a barrier for us.
I agree. I don't think I ever felt othered.
That's
Yeah.
huge though. That piece is a pretty unique piece to experience through the whole process, right? I mean, let's not talk about the world we live in general where we're othered all the time, but at least through your journey to family creation, you've had that opportunity to feel welcome and free to be who you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even the paperwork was very inclusive.
Wow.
All different people. So it wasn't like, applicant one, him and her, like there was no like real kind of, it's just like applicant one, applicant two, like it was very inclusive.
Love that.
Now, what we didn't mention before is that we also spent, I would say, close to 5 years doing fertility sort of treatments and trying to have biological kids. And that process, we were definitely othered and felt like we didn't belong. Although as a queer couple, as two women trying to have a baby, we have uteruses, so we can grow humans. You would think that space should be very inclusive, and we found at multiple places that it wasn't. And that's too bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because obviously if we are wanting to have biologic children of our own, then we are going to need some reproductive assistance. When it's two people with uteruses, you're missing a gamete or two to facilitate that process. You're going to need some help. So you would think that would be one of their primary target audiences.
Yeah. We did eventually find a clinic that was very queer friendly. So but it took some trial and error, and that trial and error cost us a lot of money and a lot of
Time
and mental stress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. No doubt. I know you have a hard stop, so I'm trying to be very respectful of that, although I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours.
We can do another session.
There you go. Excellent. Oh, don't think that I won't be calling you back. Don't think. What is, through all of this process, all of your family creation journey, what is your very, very favorite part of parenting your two children?
You can start.
My favorite part is understanding where our kids were before they met us and watching them work through their challenges and achieve. Like I every day I sit and look at marvel at these wonderful humans who every day put their best foot forward and do something awesome. Like it is what I'm grateful. Like the gratitude that you practice is watching these kids just rock it. That just fills my heart every day with such joy.
No, I love that.
That's very good.
Are you at all?
Top that, Marnie.
When we met our little guy, he was I will say like Sonic the Hedgehog, like just
that's quite a visual.
Climbing the walls, and it was as if we weren't there. He was nonverbal. He wasn't talking. He was quite delayed for his age. And now yesterday we were reading together, and he like blew my mind at reading, which has been a challenge for us, but he's just, his like the things he says or draws, like I just every time I look at him, I just remember what it was like at the start, and just watching him achieve is amazing. What are you going to say?
No pressure.
Right? I would say for me, I am just excited about the journey of life with them. Knowing that our journey is not going to look like a traditional family's journey. And I'm excited to navigate that world with them, navigate their, their past, their present, and their future, and be like, help them just thrive in life.
Yeah. Be their biggest cheerleaders, right?
That's it.
It's also wonderful to watch them together. Like, initially there's a lot of disruption to everything,
Sure.
but watching the sweet moments between the two of them is also just the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty amazing. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time today to chat with me and to tell your story and to share with the world the beauty of adoption through public agency, because that's not something that we talk about often. It's certainly not something I've yet had the opportunity to speak about on the show. And I think that the world needs more humans like the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yes, take care.
Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.